Hey everybody, it's Thomas. Let's talk about Blood Bowl, League of Blood Bowl, because that's what we do every week. We talk about Blood Bowl, League of Blood Bowl, of course. We'll start as always with my team. What's going on? We got another level up on a Corn Herald, A+. Great idea. I don't remember how I did it. Oh right, Wigs, and Socks didn't get the second touchdown, but did manage to get MVP number 2, so it all worked out. I got level 2 on my Corn Herald, which is awesome. Actually getting 2 MVPs means it's not that far away from getting level 3, which is also good because I'm going to start needing guard really soon. So upside is I add another block piece, which is huge. Stickers for Men was a huge asset, and yeah, obviously someone with block is going to be more useful than someone without block, especially someone with frenzy. So really happy to have another block piece. Really happy that it's on an 8 armor value Horns Juggernaut Frenzy piece. This is good. Also, no injuries, no missed next games for next week. Apothecary came in handy there. Pretty sure I used it anyway. Either way, if I didn't, I don't have any problems. Picked up a few SPP. We'll talk about that later, but money-wise, I need more stuff, basically. And I'm still saving up for the Bloodthirster. 110 away. So 2 more weeks minimum. Yeah, I don't know. Slowly but surely accruing SPP. I'm probably still going to focus on getting at least 1 Bloodletter Daemon, or try to focus on getting at least 1 Bloodletter Daemon to level 2, while pouring as much SPP as possible into the Corn Heralds. Like I said, I need to get them to level 3 so I can give them guard. Lots of really boring skill upgrades this season for me, but guard is pretty much mandatory for this team, and the Corn Heralds are the best, I think, systems for it. Guard is a really good skill in general. They have regular access to guard, and because they have 8 armor value, they're the most likely to be able to stick around of my people that have normal strength access that aren't the Bloodthirster. I don't have one anyway, so it doesn't matter. Let's take a look at the match, though. Played against Andrew. I managed to pull out the win 1-0. Game was weird. Good game, though. I had a good time. You can watch it up here, obviously. SPP-wise, 2 casualties, 1 touchdown, and MVP is pretty good. And by pretty good, I mean it's 12. That's okay. Andrew only gets 2. Yes, he has the MVP, but his MVP went to a loner that he couldn't hire. So only 2 SPP is pretty rough for Andrew. Basically, the game went relatively smoothly. The first half, Andrew was able to stop me, or I kicked, didn't I? Yes, I kicked. I was able to stop Andrew. I was able to score a touchdown right at the end. Second half, I wasn't able to get enough done, basically. I almost scored, and then Andrew had a miracle blitz with a Bull Centaur, and there's only so much you can do about that. And then I re-rolled my 50 down to a 20, which was maybe the saddest part, because I really could have used the 50, because if I had kept the 50, then I would have potentially been able to get the Bloodthirster for week 4. So not ideal, but these things happen. What can we do? So yeah, not a bad game for me. I mean, I got the win, and I got a good amount of SPP. Picked up a fan factor as well. Didn't mention that before. So I'm doing okay. Got 2 skill ups, and I got an apothecary at this point, so I'm doing good. Nothing really to complain about. Just need to get more for myself next week. Let's take a look at Andrew, what he got out of that. We already know it's not a lot. Walked away with 40k, it's nothing in the world. I did miss next game a Chaos Dwarf blocker, but his injury SPP did go to a blocker as well, so not too bad. He did buy his apothecary as well, which I think is definitely a good call. With the 40, can't really buy anybody except a Hobgoblin. Not really any good reason to. What I would do at this point is just hold on to it and save up for Dwarf Blocker number 2, which he or number 6, number 2, Dwarf Blocker number 6, which he should be able to get after this week. He could, in theory, save up for the Minotaur, but I think getting the Chaos Dwarf Blocker is more important. Sells all 4 Hobgoblins with no SPP, which isn't too bad. Andrew in general doesn't have a lot of SPP because he's been either unlucky or just hasn't got what he needed. So hopefully next week is a little more fruitful for him. Something I said to him that I think is still true, and true for a lot of these teams we have this season actually, is a lot of these players are really good out of the box already. So SPP is mostly needed to keep up with people like me and Mark, who are developing quickly. Well, mostly me and Chaos, theoretically long term. and vampires, whatever. The point is, there's a lot of people that will continue to develop and get better and better and better. So these teams need to acquire skills in order to stay in the running with those other teams. Still, he's not looking too bad. It's okay at this point. To the rest of the games, we have Undead versus Norse here. Mark walked away with 2 here. Relatively close game. The score doesn't really indicate that, you know, with 2-0, but I think the biggest thing here is Mark took out a mummy early on, and the mummy didn't stand back up. Mummy got KO'd, mummy didn't stand back up. And that's a huge disadvantage for the Undead team. It's the biggest thing they have going in right now. And against all this block, not a lot you could do. Still, a fair number of casualties dealt out. 3 casualties by Zach's team to the 2 casualties of Mark. And Mark has a lot more block, so good showing by Zach, I think. I mean, basically, some of it was Zach's inexperience coming through again. Some missed opportunities here and there, but for the most part, Zach's play was solid. I think dice just weren't quite as good for him as they were for Mark. Yeah, you know, sometimes things happen, and just how it is. So like I said, close game, even though the score doesn't reflect it. I think Zach played very well, and Mark just happened to play a little better. 50K for Mark, though, pretty good deal. SPP-wise, 2 casualties, 2 touchdowns, and an MVP is a good 15. Zach walks away with 3 casualties and an MVP for a total of 11. Much like me, that's not great, but it's not too bad either. Yeah, pretty good game. You can watch it up here if you haven't already. Like I said, a solid game all around, though. Missed next game here on this lineman with the damage back, which is just niggling, which we've talked about before. If you're going to get a permanent injury, that's the one to get. No other stat upgrades for him, though, although this werewolf did hit level, or it was almost level 3, and if it does its job, which is injure people, it should hit level 3, no problem. This werewolf also 5 SPP, so pretty good odds of that. I think Abed just got the MVP, yep, so that's why he's so much higher than he would be normally. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, the dirty player didn't really come into a factor, or sorry, didn't come into the fore here. In terms of development, Mark and I have talked about this a little bit. Whether, I mean, basically, what does he have to buy at this point? Another runner and another reroll. The other runner, I think, can wait, because at this point, you're still trying to feed SPP to the werewolves and the berserkers. So, 3rd reroll is probably the most important thing, and he has to get another 60 to do that, which he may very well do at the end of next week. We'll see how that plays out. But 2 fan factor total, and looking pretty good team-wise. Lineman's the only thing missing for next week, so Mark's in really good shape still. Let's take a look at the rest here. We have a 0-0 tie here. Not a great week for my predictions between Vampires and Chaos. Chris, this game was a bit of a mess. Very, very oh, wait, let's back up here. I didn't look at Zach's team, which is so inconsiderate. Zach's team did get a level up on the skeleton because the skeleton ate his MVP again. And he walked away with 70K, so pretty good deal here. He hired a zombie with the 40 he had last week, which I think is okay. It's not what I would have done. I would have just saved it for the ghoul, but if you're trying to avoid the problem Andrew had, which is your MVP going to a loner, that's a pretty good way to do it. So level up on the skeleton. A couple things you could get here. There's a lot to be said for getting block or wrestle or something like that on a skeleton. Personally speaking, I would go for dirty player. The skeleton is really well suited to dirty player because he has high movement allowance. 60 to remove something much bigger is not a big deal. I think it's a worthwhile investment. I think it's a good deal. Fouling, absolutely something this team is going to need to do for a while, and I think it's good play for him for sure. Otherwise, you know, he's slowly but surely accruing SPPs, certainly doing better than Andrew on that front. Fair amount of injuries going the way of the Whites, which is good. Whites want to hit level 2 as soon as possible so they can pick up guard or whatever fun skill you want to give them. Most of the SPP going to zombies is kind of sad. The mummies are really not behaving beyond, you know, being 5 strength, which is fine. But again, you want to get guard in these guys as well. Guard, stand firm, all those fun mummy skills, well, or grab. Well, we'll talk about that once they have guard, I suppose. But still, zombies leveling up isn't a bad deal either, because you want the zombies to get things like wrestle or block or tackle, whatever you want to give the zombies. Probably block, actually. But once the zombies get blocked, they're incredible. So anything is great for them. No SPP in the ghouls is kind of the sad part. Part of that's that he just hasn't scored any touchdowns at all. Some of that just being new, obviously. So slowly but surely, this team should develop more. Getting SPP on the ghouls is probably important because you want to start protecting them more. They need to get block or wrestle. He's got 70k here, so I would buy a third ghoul. Especially since if you give this guy Dirty Player, you're going to want to have a replacement piece. Having a third ghoul is definitely a good option for that. And also, you want to start developing your ghouls into what you want to do. You want one or two to be good ball carriers with block, and maybe one with sure hands, maybe two with sure hands. Either way, you want two with block, and I think you want two with wrestle, just to help take down the ball. Either ghouls level up pretty quickly because they're so fast and can score pretty well, but you still want to start getting them SPP. I mean, this team is kind of like Andrew's in a lot of ways. All these pieces are fairly solid. Zombies are excellent. Roadblocks, the skeleton is fine for stepping on people. Whites are still good. They could be better, but they're still good. And mummies are fantastic. So, it's just a factor of getting SVP to keep up with everybody else. So buy the third ghoul, that'd be my recommendation. I think that's a good call, certainly. And Dirty Player is what I'd recommend here, but certainly more block isn't something this team would hate to see, but I think Dirty Player will do more damage for him. That said, because Zaxnui might not be able to apply fouling as well as he wants to be, or he could be like Greyduck and just not like fouling at all. Either way, block is certainly an acceptable and perfectly good skill for this team. Okay, on to the game we started talking about. Vampire versus Chaos. You can watch this game, obviously, up here, but the game itself was weird. Lots of back and forth, lots of hitting, lots of almost touchdowns a couple times. Just wasn't able to pull it together. A death by Chris's team, though, is a pretty good deal in my book. 3 passes, 2 casualties, and MVP is a good amount of SPP. It's not great. Same one as Zach got, but it's 12. So it's not the end of the world compared to the 7 for Greyduck. Definitely an advantage there going for Chris in terms of SPP generation. And a whole lot of money. 90k again. Chris's money luck has returned, it seems. Skill-wise, this Vampire got block, which I think is fine. This Thrall got block as well, which I think is just fine. A couple things this Thrall could have gotten. I mean, Dirty Player wouldn't be bad either, but this team could definitely use more block. With both 70, or both with all the 90s, I should say, you could buy the Apothecary and buy Vampire number 3. Lady Margalotta should be doing a whole lot of damage, I'm sure, but a third Vampire will help this team out a lot. Just more Hypnotic Gaze in and of itself is fantastic. I don't know. It's kind of weird that, I mean, this Thrall did a lot of work, passing both MVPs and a casualty. Another pass for this one. I mean, this Thrall just really is going to be doing a lot of good work with block, but the Vampires need to start accruing SPP faster. I'm sure that Sally would have gotten some more SPP had Chris managed to get a touchdown in, but did manage to lose a fan factor, it seems, because he was at 8, which I didn't notice here. But he's down to 7 again, which is still more than anybody else has, and it's still a large amount more than anybody else has, so nothing bad for Chris there. Let's take a look at Greyduck's side of things. Greyduck walks away with 30, not the best there, but not the worst either. This team just needs to hire a Minotaur, basically, so no big deal. There's the Dead Beastman, giant gaping hole where that used to be. Extra Arms was picked up here, no surprise there. Fan Factor as well, so I guess we know where Chris's Fan Factor went. MVP went to a Chaos Warrior too, so that's a pretty good deal. Yeah, not a lot of SPP generated for this team. And I think, yeah, Casualty went to Ocelot Atlas again. I mean, not a great week for Greyduck, honestly, but she'll do fine. Minotaur is 90 or 100 away, so another big guy a couple weeks out for another team here. But, I mean, SPP isn't too bad. Better than Andrews, which is currently our low benchmark, so pretty good. I think on par for Zach in terms of where SPP is, or total SPP overall, in terms of where it is compared to what you need to get to level 2. No, Chaos Warriors need to get block, Beastmen need to get block, or extra arms, or wrestle, or any number of things. With Chaos, it's hard to predict what you want to do with what. Roles are obviously very dependent as well. Still, it's only week 2, or now week 3. Not expecting Chaos to do much of anything, honestly, so we'll see what happens next week. Next matchup here's last one here just happened. We had Dark Elf versus Skaven. One thing, what opposite of the way I thought it was going to. Really good week for Orville. Walked away with 40k and has a pretty good amount of SPP. 2 casualties dealt, 2 touchdowns, and MVP is 15 compared to actually a pretty good amount of damage done by the Skaven team. 1 touchdown, 2 passes, and 2 casualties. So basically it all adds up to, oh my god, math. My brain is gone today. 13 SVP for Jessup. Wow, that took forever. 7 casualties sustained and a death sustained. Death sustained from Orville that was dealt by Skaven. I haven't watched this game yet because it just happened. It is uploading theoretically soon, so I will link to it as soon as I see it. But from what Jessup was telling me, the difference between these casualties, Orville dealt to. He had 2 tackles sustained. The rest of these were from shove outs. I think Jessup forgot about, from what he was saying, forgot about the Witch Elf having Frenzy and got shoved out more times than he would have liked. So that's where the death comes from. And yeah, not great, but what can you do? So despite all 7 casualties being sustained, not a bad week. We'll look at Jessup's team a little bit, but nothing permanent, which is pretty impressive. I mean, aside from the dead. Dead is pretty permanent, all things considered. Orville, get rid of this here, walked away with some level ups on a runner and a witch elf. His runner is the one that died though, which is a little tragic, but runners skill up pretty quickly and they're not that expensive, so getting a new one is not the end of the world. With 60k you can't buy much of anything except the apothecary though, so hopefully he does that as soon as possible. Runner, have a bunch of options here, kind of depends on what you want. Accurate is pretty good for a runner, especially with dump off. Pass I think gives you more though. With 4 agility, Pass adds more reliability, I think, overall than Accurate does. Accurate will make the +0 passes still 2+ passes, but with 3+ with Pass, you have about the same amount of success anyway. And, you know, going to make the quick passes even better. It doesn't matter too much. It would help with if you're marked, though. So Accurate could be kind of a run around there if you're getting hit. Would help against that. Basically would make a dump off pass always a 2+. So that's worth considering there as well. In terms of the Witch Elf, there's a lot of options there. I would lean towards getting block because Blodge Frenzy jump up is so freaking obnoxious that why wouldn't you do that? With the amount of block in this league too, I think getting block first is probably the safer call. Arguments can be made for Wrestle though. Wrestle, Dodge, Frenzy, with jump up means that ball carriers are very, very in danger from the Witch Elf. So it kind of depends what Orville wants to do. He's got a fair amount of just, you know, raw slugging power anyway, so we'll see. Orville got his Blitzer back for this week as well, so buy the Apothecary, level up your stuff, and you should be good. Good week for Orville, though. Absolutely good week for Orville. Hopefully next week he doesn't lose any more players. But this is part of the risks you run with this Orville, oh my god, with this lineup that Orville started with. You get more utility, but weaker pieces overall. So that's what bit him here. Hire the Apothecary. ASAP is key because, as you might note, all these players are very expensive, and you want to avoid problems on them. Let's take a look at Jessup's side of things. Jessup walks away with 20. Another week of 20 is not great. Could buy the Apothecary now, though, which looks like he already did. Storm Vermin is what's out. Just missed next game though, so not the end of the world. And Dead Gutter Runner is the player. I didn't want to spoil it because that's pretty key for most people. A Dead Gutter Runner hurts his team a lot. Basically pushes back everything else this team needed to buy. That said, after the Apothecary, there's not that much more this team needs. Second Thrower is worth considering, but it's not necessarily the most essential portion. It really sucks for Jessup, basically, that the Gutter Runner died. Gutter Runners aren't very expensive, but they still are more expensive than, say, a lineman, and they did really add a lot of power to the team. That said, like a lot of things I've mentioned, Gutter Runners are really good right away. Level ups make them more resilient and make them better players, but 9 movement allowance, 4 agility, dodge, you have an excellent player right there. Next week is, again, going to be a little difficult for Jessup because he's going to be missing some key pieces once again. But he has Rat Ogre back, -1 MA and all, which is fine. We'll see how it goes. No level ups for Jessup either is kind of obnoxious, but I think he'll be able to get one this week, considering that he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players that have hit MVP. Oh my god, I really overcounted that. It's just 6 players that if they get MVP, they will hit level 2. So I'm sure we'll see level ups from Jessup next week. No fan factor still. He's lost both, so it's going to be that way. So, you know, not a great week for Jessup, but only 1 player missing. Yeah, it's a Storm Vermin, but this team can get by without both Storm Vermins for a week, especially with the Rat Ogre on the table. Hopefully, missing the Gutter Runner isn't as big of a deal, but he also has a fair amount of money coming his way, I'm guessing, considering that with the Storm Vermin missing, let's see, we're at 11 players here. What? That seems wrong. I feel... I have to check exactly what we have here, but I feel like we should have more players in this. Or fewer players in this. Either way. Nope, I'm just being crazy here. So we'll have... yeah, we'll have 2 more players, so we'll be at 970 next week, so pretty guaranteed to get some money from whoever's opponent is, which we'll talk about. Right now, like I said, bad week for my predictions, but whatever. So, for next week, we've got Undead versus Chris here. This could be a big mess for Chris. We'll see, though. Chris is a very techie, and he's playing a very techie team, and Chris is also incredibly lucky. So that'll help as well. But... there's only so much luck can do against mummies. This team has equivalent block to Chris, but, actually might have more block than Chris moving in there, but the mummies are something that are very difficult for Chris to deal with. Yes, he's got a 3rd vampire. Yes, they can be hypnotic gazed, but do you really want a vampire standing next to a mummy for a turn? I don't think you do. I really don't think you do. So we'll see. I think the big advantage Chris will have going in here is obviously just he's more experienced. He's a lot luckier than anybody. But we'll see. If the skeleton gets dirty player, the vampires are in a lot of danger. Thralls are in a lot of danger. A lot of things can go against Chris. This team is very tough and is very strong compared to the vampire team. We'll see. If Chris can get tied up in a scrum in the middle, which is what Zach has been leaning towards for most of his games, it could go very badly for him. Money given up here, assuming that he buys the ghoul like I said he should. Zach will be sitting at plus 90, so 1060 compared to Chris's probably a lot more than that. 1200, so 140, so nothing, or yeah, 140, so nothing in particular. It's got probably an Igor, a bribe, or an extra reroll. Extra reroll probably wouldn't be that bad. Bribe wouldn't be that bad. If he's feeling really nervous, he could go for an Igor, but I would probably lean towards getting the extra reroll or the bribe, depending on how foul he is. If he takes dirty player, get the bribe. If he doesn't get dirty player, then take the extra reroll. 4 rerolls will help a lot, especially for the mummies hitting things. And just the 7 armor value, the thralls, is going to break quite a lot against the mummy onslaught. So, I mean, they didn't last week, so maybe I'm wrong. But if things go okay for Zach and his mummy doesn't get KO'd for the entire game, it should be a pretty good game for Zach. We'll see. I mean, like I said, Chris is playing a very techie team, and he's a very weird techie player, and is pretty lucky. And, you know, there's something to be said for guaranteed winning fame rolls. We'll see. I've been wrong before, certainly, but I think that... I think Zach can do this. We'll see. Vampires are annoying, certainly. But I think Zach can just win the fight. We'll definitely see what happens, though. I should also mention that I didn't mention this in the recap, but Chris's vampires were pretty good in terms of bloodlust this week. No real incidents there. No thralls removed forcibly, and no vampires flying off the screen. So maybe that'll turn. This week we have Mark versus me. A matchup that didn't happen week 1 is now happening week 3. I'm scared. I'm really scared. Let's see. We both have 2 fan factor. I do have the reroll advantage. I don't know. This much block is a lot to deal with. I don't have a great way of dealing with all this strength either. The good news is I out-frenzy him by a lot. So we'll see what happens. I doubt he's going to try to fight me for sideline control, because if Mark starts fighting me for surfing rights, that's a battle I will win. My guys have more armor value pretty much across the board, and I'm more than happy to shove. I'm more than happy to make the first shove and follow up any shoves that he pulls on me. Since thanks to Frenzy, I'm going to win this war of shoving off the sides. So it's not going to be a very surf-heavy game. Sidelines will be important, I think, because that's what I'm still going to play too, but we'll see. Mark and I know each other's play styles pretty well. We'll see. He's a little bit faster than me. I don't know. I really... where am I? I really don't have a lot going for me in terms of skills. Like, I don't have a big advantage at all. I've got 2 block, and that's about it. All I've got is a good blitz, essentially. The Niggly Ninja and that Bloodletter honestly might be a problem for me, considering that he's got Mighty Blow on his Berserker now. Any money being given up? Nope, because he's at 1130, and I'm at a flat 1100 from what I remember. So yeah, no money for me, no money for Mark. I'm not looking forward to this. It'll be a huge mess of a game. I'm going to say that Mark will win. I don't think I can beat this block-heavy lineup at this point. I don't have the guard, I don't have the block. I just don't have the pieces to beat it. Alright, we've got Chaos versus a very beat-up Skaven team. Let's see here. Money-wise, 1030 for Grey Duck, which will be 1090 with the replacement Beastman. So 1090 versus the 970. So it's only 120. Weird. My notes have it this is 160, but I think I just miscalculated or forgot the Apothecary buy. So it's not a lot. It's an extra reroll, or more realistically, probably a second Apothecary would probably be okay. Depends on how nervous Jessup is feeling, but a second Apothecary wouldn't hurt. The Rat Ogre is going to be a problem, but only a marginal amount of problem, considering that the Chaos Warriors outforce all of these jerks. Storm Vermin missing also hurts quite a bit. The Gutter Runner being out is also a factor. We'll see. Jessup could take a Mercenary Gutter Runner, which I don't recommend, but it is an option. 4th reroll also wouldn't be out of place as well. We will see. The speed of the Chaos team, I think, is the biggest factor here. How well Jessup can cage up or screen off the Warriors and Beastmen is going to be huge. The Gutter Runner can win the game all by itself. Yes, it's one Gutter Runner, but with a thrower, you have a lot more range on a Gutter Runner than you'd think. Pretty tough game. Fan factor could be an issue here as well. Honestly, I'm partially leaning towards it being a tie game, simply because I think Grey Duck can defend against the Skaven bullshit, since she played a lot of Skaven. But it's really hard to stop Skaven with a team as slow as Chaos. I'm going to give it to Jessup. I think he can do it. He hasn't won a game yet this season, and I think he's going to be hungry for it. So we'll use that metaphorical, or not metaphorical, but that ambiguous, ephemeral mental state thing to influence the game. We'll see. Definitely a hard matchup for him. The 4 strength blitz is really hard to deal with, but at the same time, Grey Duck has 70 hitting skills, so that is also going to be a factor. Alright, we've got Andrew's slightly bruised Chaos Dwarves versus Orville's Dark Elves. I don't know. I don't think Orville can stand up to the Chaos Dwarves. Orville can move around a lot. He can move the ball pretty well. Dump Off is a really good skill, but Andrew is technically a faster team, even with the Witch Elf and the Blitzers. The range of the Bull Centaur is higher. Yeah, the Chaos Dwarf blockers aren't very quick, but they don't need to be. I think the sheer amount of block and punching power that Andrew has is going to be a factor. This is very similar, to, honestly, to the game up between Jessup and Grey Duck, in that you're going to have a relatively strong punching team versus a relatively weaker, more finesse team. Let's see, any inducements being given up. Andrew will be at 1,000 for team value versus let's see here. So assuming Orville buys his Apothecary, which he definitely should do, and assuming normal level ups will be at plus 90 on regular team value alone, so we'll be at 1010, and then we will be at another 70, so 1070 for Orville versus the just flat 1000 for Andrew. So, I mean, another babe, which is not a great thing for a dwarf team. It's okay. It helps the other people. It's better on Chaos Dwarf than it is on Dwarf regular, but Wizard Babes are not that ideal for a dwarf team. Still, any inducement is better than no inducement when you're behind in terms of team value, so we'll call it a mix there. I think Chaos Dwarf should be able to win this. I think Orville's ability to move the ball will be outshadowed by Andrew's ability to punch him in the face. 8 armor value is not that strong, and only 2, well, potentially 3 block pieces is not going to outbalance the 4 that Andrew will be working with. Not to mention the Bull Centaurs are very much untouchable in terms of what Orville can do to them. I don't see anything but red dice being thrown unless Andrew gets way out of position. And even then, as I firsthand experienced, then I always have to remember the Bullshit Centaurs can pull out a dodge and smash you in the face. So I'm going to give this one to Andrew. I think he's the most likely outcome here. So a quick recap in terms of winning planning. I'm going to say Zach. I'm going to say Mark. I'm going to say Jessup. And I'm going to say Andrew. Obviously, I've been very accurate this season already, so hopefully I can make it up in the other weeks, but I'm pretty happy with those. Let's take a quick look at rankings, just because they're kind of fun. Mark and I sit on top here. We're the only teams that are undefeated at this point. Well, arguably you could say that neither Greydek or Chris have lost as well. Yeah, 6-6-4-4-3, so pretty okay-ish split here. Nothing too unexpected here for week 2, but fun to look at. All right. Hall of Fame. Most experienced player, well, Wigs, and Socks is up there. We've got this Thrall, and we've got the Werewolf here way ahead of me. Pretty good here, actually. We've got a fair number of people at level 2 already, and a fair number of people also approaching level 3. Both these players could easily hit level 3 next week, so we'll see what happens there. Best scoring at the top of the charts. Yes, go Stickers for Men. I always believe in you. You know, Drew Spectacular here. It's week 2. Surprised we don't have more teams up here, honestly, but part of that is, you know, Dark Elf and Skaven haven't really been putting in any touchdowns because they've been unlucky or getting punched, so that's that. Best throwing, Skaven, Vampire, Elves, more Vampire, Skaven, more Vampire. I pretty much expect to see just those teams on this list, although I almost had a throw this week. It did not quite go well. No interceptions yet because, well, frankly, we haven't had many passes. Most violent player, congratulations to Abed for hitting 3. Calpito Effect has Ocelot Atlas at 2, and Blarney at 2 as well. Lots of 1s otherwise here. Team with the most hurt on there, unshockingly, is Mark. Mark is going full punching, has gotten pretty lucky on his armor breaks so far. I hope they stop with me. I could really not go for armor breaking. But yeah, even pretty good mix of teams so far beyond Mark occupying 4 of these slots. Whatever. If one casualty gets you on here, it doesn't matter that much. Best running. Pretty clumped together, honestly. Well, there's a big division here at 4, where Wigs, and Socks is. Then we start hitting the 50s here. But fair amount of good spread, a lot of teams here. So it's good to see. Best throwing. Good job to Demona for throwing the farthest. Congratulations to Chris for occupying the next 2 slots. Survivor won't mean anything to us. We get to add another killer to the list, though. Congratulations to Blarney for taking out a runner. It's so weird to have a Skaven team on the killer list. I mean, it makes sense. Kills are going to happen when they happen, but it's still weird to see it. Best receiving, the teams that throw are having the best receptions because no one else is throwing. Not too surprising there. So yeah, pretty good week. Teams are starting to slowly but surely develop. A lot of injuries so far this season, which I should be less surprised by. Given the relatively lowish armor we're all working with. A lot of 8s. But still, we're getting pretty broken. We'll see. Mark's on a tear. Hopefully I can take it out of him. But we'll see. Again, quick recap of who I think is going to win and lose. Undead, Norse, Skaven, and Chaos Dwarf. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next week.